I imagine appearances to appear as I am. Today's conversation, built on the foundation of Thursday's conversation, is also inspired by this quote here from Neville, in which he says, "Anytime you use your imagination lovingly on behalf of another, you are at that moment literally mediating God to them." Imagination is the redemptive power of the world, and you are actually mediating God to them by using it in a loving, wonderful way. This reminds me of a question he was asked one time. The question was, is it possible to imagine several things at the same time? Or should I confine my imagining to one desire? In which his response was, personally, I like to confine my imaginal act to a single thought, but that does not mean I will stop there. During the course of a day, I may imagine many things, but instead of imagining lots of small things, I would suggest that you imagine something so big it includes all the little things. So this is what we've been discussing a lot lately, realizing that I am fulfilled, going to the end and thinking feelingly from the end in relation to appearances, thinking feelingly from the premise of being as I am, bliss. So he says, imagine being ecstatic, blissful. You could not be ecstatic and be in pain. You could not be ecstatic and be threatened with a disposition notice. You could not be ecstatic if you were not enjoying a full measure of friendship and love. What would the feeling be like were you ecstatic without knowing what had happened to produce your ecstasy? I love this part. What would the feeling be like were you ecstatic without knowing what had happened to produce your ecstasy? Capture the feeling of being as I am, ecstasy. I am bliss, Satchit Ananda. He says, reduce the idea of ecstasy to the single sensation. Isn't it wonderful? So this is where he shares, isn't it wonderful, as the autosuggestion. He says, do not allow the conscious reasoning mind to ask why. Because, as we know, it may look for visible causes. There is no visible cause. There are only appearances of the one universal cause and substance of the entire phenomena of life. I am. Exodus 3:14. And God said unto Moses, I am that I am. And he said, Thou shalt thus say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me unto you. So we actually discussed on Thursday's video, the individual may interpret the five senses from past imaginal activity, which is untrue to being as I am. And so I like to ask myself the question, can I be as I am beyond appearances? Certainly, as I am truly beyond appearances. So I like to reflect upon every now and then Romans 12:2, where it states, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. I love that. Perfect will. To me, that implies the feeling of ecstasy beyond interpretations. As he said, do not allow the conscious reasoning mind to ask why, because if it does, it may start looking for visible causes. There is no visible cause. These are appearances that appear through the five senses, including the thoughts, emotions, beliefs, phenomena of mind, appearances. I consider what appears through the five senses as appearances, as well as the mental phenomena as appearances. By capturing the feeling of ecstasy, knowing that I am ecstasy, thoughts arise, emotional relatability arises, behaviors arise, and physical appearances arise, which include all the things desired. He says, rather repeat over and over again, isn't it wonderful? Again, rather than thinking about past interpretations in relation to the five senses that are not from the premise of truth, being I am ecstasy now, Sat Chit Ananda, know that I am and think feelingly from the premise of being as I am. As I titled today's conversation, Mind Map, I imagine appearances to appear as I am, ecstasy. So the auto-suggestion, again, he says, repeat over and over again, isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wonderful? He says, suspend judgment as to what is wonderful. Catch the one sensation of the wonder of it all, and things will happen to bear witness of the truth of this sensation. The truth of this sensation. And I promise you, he says, it will include all the little things. This is one of my favorite points that Neville makes, as it speaks directly to truth, knowing that I am fulfilled, love, happiness, peace, bliss, knowing that I am, and living from that premise, thinking feelingly from that premise. That way, the individual may relate ideally from the premise of truth, knowing that I am ecstasy, and relating ideally accordingly. Thus, in relation to Romans 12:2, not conforming to the pattern of this world, which can be past untrue imaginal activity playing out as appearances to reveal what the individual has been identified with. An illusion. Conforming to the appearances of the world is an illusion, as you are truly beyond conformity to appearances, as I and the Father are one. And so we may relate ideally accordingly from the premise of truth, by capturing the one sensation of the wonder of it all, and observe that all things happen to bear witness of the truth of this sensation. So this has been a major part of my practice. Being as I am, fulfilled, happiness, love, bliss, ecstasy. I had a conversation the other day with a client. She had put out a video, and she spoke from the premise of truth. And it appeared in the comment that someone was saying that she does not know what she's talking about. So she asked me about this phenomena, and I said, you spoke from the premise of truth, knowing that I am fulfilled, and you operated from that premise. So I said, imagine lovingly in relation to the appearance. Neville articulates this perfectly. He says, to establish rapport, call your friend mentally. Focus your attention on him and mentally call his name, just as you would to attract his attention were you to see him on the street. Imagine that he has answered. Mentally hear his voice. Imagine that he is telling you of the great good you have desired for him. You speak from the premise of truth, I said. Speaking from the premise of truth, you truly desire them to be as I am, fulfilled. As mentioned, Neville stated, anytime you use your imagination lovingly on behalf of another, you are at that moment literally mediating God to them. So let us practice mediating God to them. He said, you in turn tell him of your joy in witnessing his good fortune. Having mentally heard that which you wanted to hear, having thrilled to the news heard, go about your daily task. Your imagined conversation must awaken what it affirmed. The acceptance of the end wills the means. And the wisest reflection could not devise more effective means than those which are willed by the acceptance of the end. I mentioned, you went to the end. You realized that I am bliss. Sat Chit Ananda, truth, consciousness, bliss. Or we could say existence, consciousness, bliss. And knowing that I am bliss, we can experience that bliss as the outer appearances of life. And so you put together this video from the premise of truth, knowing that I am. And in relation to appearances, the practice continues. Isn't it wonderful? You may call upon this friend mentally and imagine them lovingly. Imagine them congratulating you for contributing to true self-acceptance, knowing that I am love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. And so what was amazing about this is right away, upon imagining ideally and mediating God to them, she felt fulfilled, knowing that I am love, I am peace, I am bliss, I am happiness. And knowing that I am truly, she continued to put out the videos, and she did not allow past interpretation in relation to the appearances to appear to sway her. And I say that very precisely. The thought in relation to appearance may result in the individual forgetting that I am, in which the individual identifies with that appearance as a result of the identity they had once formed to that appearance. What is being proposed here is, can I be as I am beyond appearances, beyond identification? Certainly, as I am truly beyond appearances. You exist beyond appearances. You choose the concept of self. I suggest true self-concept, being as I am, knowing that I am, and living from that premise. And then it doesn't appear that your imagination controls you. You realize, as he says here, if you do not control your imagination, you will find that you are hearing and saying all that you formerly heard and said, appearing in and as the outer appearances of life. So no shame in condemnation. Put off that former conversation, as he says, with this knowledge of the power of imagination. Be as the disciplined individual and transform your world by imagining and feeling only what is lovely and of good rapport. So again, in relation to appearances, transform your world by imagining and feeling only what is lovely and of good rapport. Go to the end. Know that I am fulfilled, and remain as I am in relation to appearances. And if appearances appear to throw you out of your state, acknowledge that appearances do not appear to throw you out of your state. It is what the individual relates to appearances that generates the illusion of conformity, as stated in Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. Not conforming to the appearances of the world, which is an illusion, as truly you are beyond conformity to appearances, as I and the Father are one. Being unconditional to appearances, I am, and knowing that I am love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. I relate ideally accordingly from the premise of truth. As he said here, catch the one sensation of the wonder of it all, and things will happen to bear witness to the truth of this sensation. And I promise you, it will include all the little things. So go to the end and abide in and from your ideal state of consciousness. And in relation to appearances, if individuals appear to say things which reveal doubt identified with, no shame, no condemnation. Establish rapport. Call your friend mentally. Focus your attention on them and mentally call their name, just as you would to attract their attention. Were you to see them on the street, imagine that they have answered. Mentally hear their voice. Imagine that they are telling you of the great good you have desired for them. You, in turn, tell them of your joy in witnessing their good fortune. Imagine lovingly. Imagine them imagining you lovingly. That's the relationship from the premise of truth, love. Having mentally heard what you wanted to hear, having thrilled to the news heard, go about your daily task, and it's done for you. The one unseen power within, I am, takes what has been imagined by the individual and some way, somehow, animates all that appears and appears as what the individual imagined. As he says, your imagined conversation must awaken what it affirmed. The acceptance of the end wills the means, and the wisest reflection could not devise more effective means than those that were willed by the acceptance of the end. God does everything. As there's only God appearing, only God animating all that appears through what the individual imagines. And so, why does it appear to the individual that they cannot control their imagination? Perhaps they're recalling untrue beliefs in imagination, not from the premise of truth, knowing that I am ecstasy. And so every moment that is presented, such as that, is an opportunity to practice this, to prune the vine, to revise the appearances. And sure enough, some way, somehow, we don't concern ourselves with those details. God does everything. Some way, somehow, they rearrange and appear exactly from the premise of truth. And we don't wait, as he said. Do not wait 4 months for the harvest. Today is the day to practice and control and discipline your imagination. The individual is only limited by weakness of attention and poverty of imagination. And we know, truly, attention automatically reveals from the premise of truth, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. The individual, based on identification to untrue beliefs, is generating illusions where attention goes to reveal what the individual formed an identity around, which is not from the premise of truth. Again, what is proposed here is to know that I am. Realize that the individual is an appearance of the cause and substance of the entire phenomena of life. Weakness of attention dissolves by going to the end, by capturing the feeling right now. Isn't it wonderful? And if you find it helpful, repeat the auto-suggestion that he shared. Isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wonderful? Wow. Suspending judgment as to what is wonderful. Catch the one sensation of the wonder of it all, and things will happen to bear witness to the truth of this sensation. He said, the great secret is a controlled imagination and a well-sustained attention, firmly and repeatedly focused on the object to be accomplished. And so all I truly desire is to be as I am. Knowing that I am bliss, fulfilled, happiness, peace, that is the object to be accomplished. What other purpose is there? Anything else I consider to be from the premise of untrue beliefs. As I release identification by applying what we discuss here to the untrue beliefs, you naturally imagine others to appear from the premise of truth, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. And attention automatically appears to remain on what is related and appears to go in a direction to reveal the symbols of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. So this is what I mean by I imagined appearances to appear as I am. We could say the senses confirm the being I am. And so go to the end. Imagine being ecstatic, as he said. You could not be ecstatic and be in pain. you could not be ecstatic and be threatened with a disposition notice. You could not be ecstatic if you were not enjoying a full measure of friendship and love. What would the feeling be like were you ecstatic without knowing what had happened to produce your ecstasy? I like this because the individual may interpret and say, I can only feel ecstasy if some outer condition is met. Those are appearances in which the individual is suggesting to themselves that a visible cause is the cause of ecstasy. Yet when they realize the truth that the feeling of ecstasy can be generated within without appearances, then they know the truth and the truth has made them free. Then they feel the ecstasy now. And as the individual continues to practice this, they unconditionally feel ecstasy wherever they are. From my personal experiences as a result of applying this, I feel ecstasy more so each day in increasing frequency on a continuous basis in circumstances where it was challenging to experience ecstasy. I talk about this in my entrepreneurial journey. I feel ecstasy in sales. I feel ecstasy in marketing. I feel ecstasy in operations. I feel ecstasy in leadership. I feel ecstasy. What was once considered extremely challenging, frustration, etc., was realized to be individual interpretation of appearances, which was generating unnecessary resistance on the journey to actualizing the entrepreneurial successes. I noticed this as a pattern with myself in the earlier stages and working with others, through my IT business, through my consulting practice, and if it appears, as I had articulated with my client, if there is an appearance that is not from the premise of truth, the individual knows what is that love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. I have no interest or desire to put my bias and tell you what love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. You know what that means. Go within and realize that I am. And if you don't know what implies that, no shame and condemnation. Capture the feeling of being that now. I am that feeling now. And sure enough, it appears. And then you see it as you go about your day-to-day experiences, appearing in and as the outer appearances of life. And also, as mentioned, it becomes easier and easier to imagine lovingly, mediating God to individuals. And you have a wonderful, joyous, blissful life. And this is a practice. Repetition, again, again, and again. And mind is purified, as I remain as I am, ecstasy, regardless of appearances. And by that I mean, you automatically, the appearances, you realize that they don't sway you, nor did they ever sway you, truly, as you exist beyond appearances, which includes the appearances of thoughts, emotions, behaviors, etc. You can certainly choose to entertain thoughts. You can certainly experience emotions, yet there's no shame, condemnation, or resistance to experiencing emotion. And the outer appearances of life are realized to be in harmony and in contribution to actualizing your vision. So you remain unconditionally fulfilled in relation to appearances as a result of applying this information that Neville so graciously shared. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's conclude this with an auto-suggestion to further encourage. You could say, I imagine appearances to appear as I am, as appearances rearrange to appear as I am. Love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Everywhere I appear to go, I realize that I am, transforming appearances to appear as love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Reflections of knowing that I am. Imagining lovingly, on behalf of another, mediating God to them. as attention automatically reveals from the premise of truth, knowing that I am ecstasy. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk with you soon. Take care.